How's it going, Dopamon fans? Today, we're talking about the Edmonton Oilers, who, as of their most recent loss to the Ottawa Senators, have only won two of their last 14 games and dropped out of a playoff spot. The team's falling apart, so we're here to talk about what the causes are and what we think some solutions could be.
If you like this kind of more discussion-y based NHL content, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We got all kinds of hockey content on the channel right now, and we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So really appreciate you guys sticking around and hanging out. But yeah, what is wrong with the Edmonton Oilers,
Yeah,
Alex?
what's happening, Ryan? So this losing streak started really what we see after that 5-2 win over Pittsburgh, December 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go on a 6-game lose streak after that, win 2 games, one against Columbus, one against Seattle, and then go on another 6-game lose streak, which the sixth game was Ottawa. And the two teams that they did beat in December to split that lose streak, Columbus, that was Columbus's fifth loss in a row. They were also playing bad, and Seattle has been bad all year. So I feel like the victories that they have had since the beginning of December haven't been much to write home about at all.
Yeah, even those two games, there's not much to write home about it. Like you said, yeah, they've just been bad since the start of December, and we're here to talk about a little bit as to why that is, some numbers, some different things that we think could be happening with this team. I just have the schedule up
The
here. This
schedule
is
here.
what's happened over the last little bit. Now, there's obviously a little bit of a gap. A couple times for both Christmas and the Edmonton Oilers have been in a little bit of a COVID uh, crisis and
Hmm.
protocol. Like they had like from the 5th to the 15th, they had a 10-day break in between the when they lost to Toronto and when they lost to Edmonton in January, and then another big break until they play Florida actually tonight. So I'll be interested to see that game go off. But yeah,
Hmm.
there's definitely something wrong with the Edmonton Oilers, and recently too, like they're starting to show frustration, a lot of it with a little bit of outbursts from Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl showing a lot of frustration. Obviously, the weird Jim Matheson thing that happened when he
Yeah,
called.
that.
Just there's a lot of frustration in Oilers land from the reporters all the way to the players and the
You
coaches
want to
and Dave
quote that for
Tippett.
the people who don't know?
Yeah, for the people who don't know, Jim Matheson called or asked a question about how what is wrong, what do you need
The
to
main
fix,
reason, yeah,
the
the
main
main reason
reason.
the Oilers are
and
losing.
and Draisaitl gave, I think, an appropriate answer, and it's like freaking everything's wrong, man, like all of it. And Jim Matheson didn't like his tone or something and called him
Mhm.
pissy. So it was a little bit strange, the little strange interaction from a player and reporter. But there's all over the Edmonton Oilers right now screams dysfunction, and we're here to talk about a couple reasons why that is.
Mhm. So let's say we both think the main cause, McDavid and Draisaitl have not been scoring.
Yeah, maybe not the main cause, but one of the huge causes of this downswing in goals. And just a little
Mhm.
graphic on the screen here now is from when the start of the year to now. Um, you can see
They
I'll
had
have
30 goals in their first 17 games. That's a lot. It's a lot of goals. It's almost 2 goals a game between the two of them.
yeah, Draisaitl was at a goal a game, I think, for the first 21 games of the season.
Mhm.
He had 21 goals, and since I think he's had six.
Yeah.
So you can see right, we have an arrow where it starts to like descend pretty quickly, their goal production. They only have
Mhm.
10 goals from just before December to now. Yeah, it's not great. Um,
Yeah, we had that one split 17 games on one side, 18 games on the other. That's 30 goals in the first half and 15 in the second half. That's not a lot. They halved their goal total in the same amount of time. They need to score more, and you can see on the schedule, there's a bunch of times that they're only losing by a goal or two, something that they could, they need that. They need that scoring from them.
yeah, and when the Edmonton Oilers go, the the big guys have to bring them there. They're a team that's built very top heavy, and that's part of the we'll get to that as a reason why we we think that's happening, and part of the solution could be
Mhm.
for depth. But we'll get into that. Another big issue is goaltending. I think it's a worse issue than Draisaitl and McDavid not scoring, because those guys are the best. It's like two of the best players on the planet,
Mhm.
and I'm not gonna sit here and go, well, McDavid needs to score 3 goals a game in order for this team to win. He doesn't. He shouldn't have to.
Mhm.
The goaltending needs to be a whole hell of a lot better. We have three goalies in the Edmonton Oilers system right now: Koskinen, Smith, and Skinner. I heard they might be getting back Alex Stalock too
Mhm.
from
He has clear waivers,
COVID
which might be
illness.
the issue.
Yeah, it might be an issue, but for the sake of this video, this skid, they've had 3 goalies. Smith has been injured for a whole lot of it, and that's part of the reason why this hasn't gone very well. He started off the year very well at a 947 and a 946, and then got hurt. And Koskinen just hasn't been the guy. Stuart Skinner, not quite there yet. Me and you were talking. We don't know if he's quite
Mhm.
ready yet, do we?
And on a team that's losing, it's hard for him to even become a starter. What's he supposed to carry this team all of a sudden on his back from being like a rookie? No, like, he's 23 or 24 years old. He's way too young to have this kind of pressure put on him. Just as a backup, his numbers have been all right. They were pretty good at like the start of the season, but he's definitely not a guy who can be a starter for them, not their long-term solution. And from that December 1st, after that December 1st win, both of their save percentages drop off.
Yeah,
At
absolutely go
yeah,
off the fucking cliff.
it's been under point 0.9, under 900, 90%, the save percentage as of that December 1st. Before then, it was over 930 between the two of them. And now, since it's below 900, which is just unacceptable by NHL standards, you need goaltending at least 910, 915, you're hoping.
Yeah, I think NHL average is about 915, and it's actually a little bit higher than it has been in years past. Seeing a lot of goalies rocking 920s and 930s right now. I think there's a few goalies with a 930. You just don't see that historically, but they need to be better than what they are. They're sub
Mm-hmm.
900. This isn't good. This is last year's San Jose Sharks.
Yeah.
You can't defend, you can't stop pucks. It's a huge problem.
And I think we both will agree that one of the issues that the Edmonton Oilers don't have is coaching.
Yes. Yeah. I've heard a lot about, we need to fire Dave Tippett. We need to fire Dave Tippett. And I am super against that for one reason. How many coaches have been through this team since they started to be competitive? Do you know the number, Alex?
9, 8, somewhere
Seven.
in there.
Seven
7.
since 2010, which is the year they drafted Taylor Hall first overall. And that's when I kind of consider this window starting from the Edmonton Oilers like to be very, very good. Obviously, they didn't get McDavid until 2015, but they were still supposed. They got 3 first overall picks in that time frame, so that should be when it started.
Mm-hmm.
Tom Rennie, Ralph Kruger, Dallas Eakins, Todd Nelson, Todd McClelland, Ken Hitchcock for interim, and now Dave Tippett. Dave Tippett is a good NHL coach.
Mm-hmm.
And there are examples all throughout the league where a team fires their coach, gets a new one, and then goes on a run. So if that's the problem, if these guys just aren't receptive to like coaches, I don't know if that's a personnel problem because they can't get along with your coach. The last 7 times. Why is the eighth
Mm-hmm.
time gonna work,
Yeah.
right? So I
Then
don't
the
know
issue
if
is the
that's the
player,
issue.
not the coach, right? Yeah, like that's a roster issue, and I don't think right. Like I don't think you can have that problem 8 times. It's it's definitely not the coaching issue here. It's on the team to be better, or to be more receptive to coaching if they're not receptive to coaching at all.
Yeah, and that's I don't know I don't know what to do with the Oilers really, and we'll talk a couple things that we have in mind, solutions to make this the problem. And the big solution for us is they just need to make a move.
Yeah,
They,
anything, because doing nothing does nothing. That's a choice to lose. They're spiraling out of control, and if they think, oh, we'll just keep at it. That's them choosing to keep this losing roster. Doing nothing is bad. Like, it's a choice to lose. Like, they have to make any move, even if it's a lateral move, in my opinion.
Yeah, they just need to change something up, try to get something in there, and specifically, we need to talk about goaltending because
Mhm.
Mike, I mean it's Mike Smith, Mike Koskinen and Smith is just not the combo for me, and it wasn't last year, and then Smith went on this a crazy run and had like a 920 and played well in the playoffs. But even at the start of last year, I wasn't very happy with what Edmonton's decided to do in goal. Obviously, Mikko Koskinen's contract was Peter Chiarelli's last move, and it's not
Mhm.
aged well on that team, but is expiring
No.
at the end of the year.
I didn't even think Koskinen earned that contract in the year he earned that contract. He's never lived up to that before, after having signed it. So I've never been a fan of Mikko Koskinen as a starter in Edmonton, and I agree with Mike Smith. I think he's just too old. He went on one hot streak, but other than that, he's just not consistent enough. You can't have that as a starter. Uh, there are some options, though trading Koskinen might be hard because Koskinen does have a no trade list.
Yeah, and the other issue is we'll talk about some solutions for goaltending. One of which has come up a lot of annals right now, a lot of Twitter feeds is Marc-Andre Fleury. Marc-Andre Fleury is the reigning Vezina champion and still a very, very solid goaltender in my opinion. And in Chicago, it's not a playoff team. Chicago's not going to make a run. Edmonton could, but the
Mhm.
problem is any goalie who has a no trade clause, like Marc-Andre Fleury, or no movement clause, is not going to have Edmonton on that team, on that list, for a couple reasons. One, because it's in Canada. And generally, when you ask agents or players who have had no trades in the past, every single one of them had don't trade me to Canada because it's winter, it's colder. He's not going from you're not going from Florida to Edmonton. That's such a shock. And the
Mhm.
other one is money. Obviously, Canadian dollar is not as big. It's and
And you get taxed more on that dollar as well.
you get taxed more on that dollar. You There's issues right now with moving back and forth. If Marc-Andre Fleury wanted to bring his family into Edmonton right now, that'd probably be very difficult considering the COVID situation, the protocols surrounding Canada right now going in and out of the States. It's just there's so many issues with coming to Canada that every single person who has a no trade clause is going to have all 7 Canadian teams on it.
Mhm.
It's an unfortunate circumstance, and that's why Marc-Andre Fleury I don't think is the answer. I don't know who is, to be completely honest.
Mhm. But if he does waive or have Edmonton on his to trade list, what would you see a deal working out for? Because obviously Edmonton has a little bit of a cap issue. So they'd have to retain, a lot of money on Flurry to keep him under the cap, and they'd have to get rid of a contract like Koskinen, and they'd both have to waive their no trade list. But assuming they did, could you see one for one, Flurry for Koskinen, and maybe a piece from Edmonton to Chicago going the other way?
Yeah, I could absolutely see that. I think in a vacuum without a no trade clause, Fleury I think is a big upgrade on Mikko
Mhm.
Koskinen, and I haven't been a fan of Koskinen like the whole time he's been there, but yeah, I don't have a specific trade lined up on Cap Friendly for this for Fleury. By the way, there's a lot of other
Mhm.
stuff, but we look at I'll flip over to Edmonton's Cap Friendly here. It's Mikko Koskinen. You're not going to get much for Mikko Koskinen, but you're also not going to get a whole lot for Marc-Andre Fleury. And people forget a lot of the times goaltenders in the NHL do not have the same value in trades as players do and as top defensemen do. What was Marc-Andre Fleury traded for?
Free.
He was basically free from Vegas to Chicago, and he just won a Vezina. So you're not going to get that kind of value for a goaltender. So having flipping Koskinen for Fleury, both on expiring deals, you retain to make the money work, and Edmonton throws in a sweetener, because Chicago has to retain more money. That's all it'll end up doing for any goalie trade, whether it's Marc-Andre Fleury, whether it's I've seen Peter Mrazek's name in there, I've seen Braden Holtby's name in there, Anton Hudobin, um, Drieger
I'm
out of
gonna give
Seattle.
you another option. I know you don't like this one. I really like this trade. I think it could be an option for Matt Murray. Now,
Yeah,
Edmonton needs, not only to just win now, but they have a fairly young roster. They need to think about if they were to get rid of their goalie, who's going to play next year. Obviously, you want to win this year too, this year's your priority, but next year, what happens? Koskinen's off the books. You don't want to re-sign him. He's playing awful. Mike Smith might just be on long-term injury reserve. What's the option here? And I feel like Matt Murray, maybe $1.5 to $2 million retained, 1-for-1 for Koskinen. That gets Ottawa out of the Matt Murray contract for the future. They can bring up a guy like Philip Gustafson, Matt Sogard, that they have goalies in their system, and it gives Matt Murray a chance in Edmonton to maybe be a starter and revitalize his career. He's a guy that he's been an elite goaltender in the past. He's only he's as old as we are. He's 27. He's not incredibly old by goaltender by goaltender comparisons. I think that there's definitely more to his career and his future. And having played at such a high level in the past, I think he can absolutely reach that again. Maybe short term, long term, who knows how long his career could be. But I think in Edmonton, fresh start for his career. Maybe he could be a guy who, plays like he did in Pittsburgh, only 2 years ago.
yeah, and it's a risky move for Edmonton
Mhm.
because the length of the contract. If they, I don't know what the future for free agent goaltenders are, but
Not a lot this
there's not. I
summer
know
either.
there's never
Yeah.
there's never really a lot. To get a goaltender, you need to really go through trade. And Koskinen to Murray, if it was 1 year, I think it'd be a great trade. But because there's another 2 years after this at 6.25, could be
That's why
really.
I thought maybe if Ottawa had retained 2 million to keep it exactly the same as Koskinen's. So it only costs Koskinen just as much, and Edmonton wouldn't have to give up, a draft pick. I know they don't even have their own third this year. They've been giving up a few draft picks. They could save that by, relieving Ottawa of that terrible contract, which, if 2 million's retained, 4 million, 4.5 million, if Murray could actually be a starter, that's what they were going to pay Koskinen anyway. I could see that, being a favorable if he plays well, being favorable for the Oilers to pay 4.5 million for a starter.
Yeah,
But it is risky. That's a huge risk because if it doesn't, then you're stuck for 2 years.
yeah, exactly. And he does have a no movement clause, Matt Murray, but it's Canada to Canada, so
Mhm.
it's more likely to happen than coming from the states into Canada. Um, Especially with Matt Murray's situation, he might just accept any trade at this point.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't think he's happy in Ottawa.
no. The other problem with Matt Murray's contract is his actual base salary is back end loaded. It's not front
Hmm.
end loaded. It's 6 million this year, and then 7, and then 8. So the actual money that he's getting paid goes up to 8 million in 2 years, and that might be more of a sticking point for Edmonton than cap hit, to be completely honest. Um,
I thought they'd be a bigger team and be more willing to swallow a salary versus Ottawa. That's such a small market. They're trying to save money, and I'm surprised that they gave this contract at all.
oh yeah, 100%.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Yeah, it definitely is a
Edmonton would
factor.
be taking the same risk that Ottawa did when they signed this guy. So we'll see. I think that's probably the most likely goaltender to be traded. As much as I don't like this trade
Mhm.
For Edmonton's sake, um, as much as I don't
They,
like it, I
yeah.
think it's the only realistic one, unfortunately. Unless they go after a guy like Anton Hudobin, which I don't think is the answer. Uh,
Mhm.
at least if you're getting Matt Murray, retained for $4 million for next 2 years, at least he has a chance to be good in 2 years.
Yeah, yeah. Hudobin,
Hudobin, Hudobin's at the end of his career. He's not a starter. You need someone along with Mike Smith, who is signed next year, which is insane, by the way. We didn't really touch on that. The
I
fact that
think
he
he's
got
going to
a
be
2 year
LTIR.
deal is insane. Yeah, he might be LTIR. You're right, but Yeah. The other problem for me with Edmonton's roster is it is so, and I flipped over, I don't know why.
Top heavy.
It's so top heavy, dude. Look at this nonsense. And
It's rather atypical, right? Teams usually have a hard time getting the top end franchise talent.
yeah, yeah, they've done the hard part in getting Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. You have the best player on the planet, and then probably
The third best.
the
Like,
third, fourth, fifth, like he's in there for
Mhm.
for best players in the world. And then Zach Hyman, who's a good player, but on a terrible contract, if you ask me. And then a bunch of like depth players, and it's
Mhm.
very strange. And another thing that people aren't talking a lot about is Darnell Nurse's contract bumps up to 9.25 next year, and he's been struggling as well.
Yeah.
So, like Tyson Barrie to a long contract, Cody Ceci to a long contract. If they can't figure it out themselves, or if Edmonton goes out and get a goalie and they still can't defend in front of them, you really need to like open up every option for retooling the decor, retooling the depth guys. They don't have a lot of space, obviously. They have zero cap space. They're right up against a cap with LTIR, but it's tough. I don't know
Mhm.
exactly which players you ship out and which you don't. You keep. The players I would ship out the most have the long contracts, so I don't know if that's possible to do. Guys like Zach Hyman, Zach Cassian, Duncan Keith, Tyson Barrie, Cody Ceci, they all have multi-year deals.
I know. I feel like because Hyman is playing really well
Yeah,
right now,
he
that they
is.
might. The contract length is obviously a huge issue, but for this year, 5.5 is okay for his production. But who's gonna take Zach Cassian?
Yeah,
Who's gonna take Cody Ceci? Both are 3.225 million, but neither are great. Cassian's a guy who could be an extra forward on some teams. He brings physicality, but what else?
yeah.
CC has, he's got some lateral movement, but he's not fast enough. Never reached that potential he was supposed to be. And they're just kind of just fringe guys on these really expensive contracts. And it kind of reminds me of Vancouver, who had to like dump all those contracts onto Arizona.
A little bit, yeah, it does remind me of that. Except those contracts, like Vancouver 3 years ago, when they had those
Yeah, when they had
contracts
those, yeah, 3 years ago.
still long. Um,
Mhm.
by the way, that Vancouver, that was dumb. They should have just waited for those contracts to expire. But yeah, that's at the end of the day, they have the best player on the planet,
Mhm.
and if they miss the playoffs with Connor McDavid in their lineup, they need to seriously reconsider what the hell they're doing in Edmonton. Because I'm a Leafs fan. If anyone from Edmonton's watching this,
Yeah.
I have a little bit of Leafs fan bias, but I'm a hockey fan first, and to see Connor McDavid in this playoffs, potentially, let's say the crazy alt reality that Edmonton and Toronto make to the Cup final, to have McDavid and Matthews, the two of the top centers in the world, go off against each other against in the Stanley Cup final is a dream for the NHL, and they
Mhm.
need to have that guy in the playoffs. Edmonton needs to pick up their shit.
Yeah, it could have happened even last year because of the Canadian division, but
Yeah, we
both
got
Edmonton
robbed.
and Toronto got beat in the first round, and so the
Yeah.
McDavid Matthews matchup never got to happen. But yeah, I'd love to see that as a East versus West Stanley Cup Finals. What more do you want than Matthews and McDavid, the two best forwards in the league right now, against each other? And you know the way it's looking, we're not going to get one of them in there. So
Yeah, before we finish this off too, is one player we haven't talked about at all in this video is
the most
Evander Kane.
polarizing, probably, yeah, Evander
Evander
Kane.
Kane. um, I don't know what's happening with him. I think there were some issues where he might get suspended again because he jumped into Canada where he shouldn't have. I don't know the specifics on that. I'm not sure many people do right now. Um, what do you think a possible Evander Kane would do for this lineup?
Yeah, it would certainly give them. Reports are 1.5 million, which is how much cap space the Oilers have now. But I feel like it can, like, if he comes in and scores, it could give them a legitimate bona fide top six, and that's something they need because outside of McDavid, outside of Draisaitl, I love Hyman, but he's not like an offensive threat.
No.
He's an energy guy, and he does score a lot of points, but not like because of his offensive skills. It's just like they need more of an offensive threat, and I feel like having Kane, they could split up McDavid. They could with Draisaitl, with Nugent Hopkins, who we even haven't mentioned, like who can score as well. Like having maybe three lines with actual scoring, there's something there that I think that Kane could help bump those, the guys that we consider depth down the roster to where maybe they should be in the bottom six.
Yeah, and this is talking about Kane in a vacuum too. I don't even know if he deserves to be in the NHL anymore personally, but he still is good at hockey. So
Yeah.
the hockey world, the hockey people that run teams will still give him a contract, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to, deal with Evander Kane still. But I think it could be huge if they can get Evander Kane in here and they can figure out what the hell is going on in goal and get a competent netminer. Even if that goalie is Mike Smith again and he comes back from injury and they get rid of Mikko Koskinen for maybe Matt Murray and then they run with Smith and Murray for the rest of the season in tandem like that, could that help? I think it could be a huge help, but at the end of the day, I think the big guys on this team are going to have to be the ones that get them out of it. Unfortunately, McDavid and Draisaitl.
McDavid and Draisaitl, they have to score.
Unfortunately, we talked about at the end, or at the beginning, their numbers have dropped off. They shouldn't have to score 2-3 goals a game, 2-3 points a game each. But with the makeup of this team, they might have to.
Mm-hmm. And I believe that's all we have to say about the Edmonton Oilers right now. Hopefully, they are going to play the Florida Panthers tonight. So maybe, this is all unnecessary, but maybe they extend this streak to 7 losses, and that would be rough.
Yeah, I might be watching that game. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to be watching that game. Game is going to start in about an hour and a half as of when this is being posted, so keep your eyes open for that.
Yeah, Edmonton didn't get lucky and play a team in a skid that is, struggling. The Florida Panthers are probably the best team in hockey right now, so huge test. I don't know who's starting in goal. It probably Koskinen, but we'll see. That's it for us.
Ottawa, they were up 3-1. They gave up 5 goals in the third. That was in my opinion like the hammer right in the coffin, because they had their chance. They played Toronto and they lost, and it's like, okay, Toronto's a good team, but Ottawa, they gave Ottawa hope, right? Like
100% should have beaten Ottawa.
Yeah, they won 40 minutes, but hockey's a 60-minute game. You got to play 60 minutes, and they didn't.
Yep, as a Leaf fan, I know that. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. If you made it this far, we really appreciate it. Let us know what you think about this whole Edmonton situation. What is the problem out there? Edmonton Oilers fans, if you found this video, let us know what you guys think. You guys are obviously the experts on the Edmonton Oilers. The fan base in Edmonton is a smart group of hockey people. Like, there are fan bases that aren't smart, and then there are others who know what the hell they're talking about. Edmonton's one of them. Let us know what you guys think. The answer is out there. If it's just, get through this slump, don't need to change anything, wait for Evander Kane to sign, Mike Smith will figure it out. Let us know. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe to the channel for more dope hockey content. We got a lot of stuff coming out soon. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers. But that's it for us. Peace.